Chapter, I don't know what chapter it was anyway. It's problem 26. And I'm not going to start over, even though that's the beginning. But we have to find x-intercepts, and x-intercepts mean we're going to plug in 0 for y, also known as roots. So if we, ultimately it's going to look kind of like this. We've figured out a way to use diamond problems and boxes and matching and all these kind of things to accomplish our goal. So we're going to multiply those two together to get our negative 30. And this is a negative 1. The two numbers that multiply together to get those two numbers is negative 6, positive 5. Multiplies to get that, adds together to get that. Now this is a neat new trick. Without the boxes, if you use the 3x, I say new, it's new to me officially. If I use the coefficient of 3 in front of both x's and I plop these out in front, a minus 6 and a plus 5, I'm taking the numbers directly from here, and for a long time I said you have to go to the box because these numbers aren't going to work. Well, they will work if we understand that 3 can be the coefficient of both x terms. Okay? The thing you have to make sure you understand is that times that is not going to get you a 3x squared. So we need to do what's called taking out the trash. Okay? Nothing can be removed from here, but if you look at these two terms, we can take out a 3. There's too many 3's because I put them in both. But if you understand that you're going to take it out of the one where you can take it out of, you're good to go. A 3 goes out of there, and what's left is an x minus 2. Where normal factoring, you'd leave the 3 out in front. We're removing it because it never belonged there. So our factors are actually x minus 2 and 3x plus 5. Those two factors will, if you FOIL them back together, give you this problem here with the outer being the 5x, the inner being the negative 6x. So a quick check can kind of get you there. But regardless, we want to find the solution. So if we set them both equal to 0, we add 2 to both sides, you get x equals 2. We subtract 5 from both sides, and at least temporarily it would be 3x equals negative 5. But you'd have to divide by 3 to get x equals negative 5 over 3. So the answer here would be B. I'm not going to circle them so you can't just look without listening. Okay. Function notation, plug in negative 5 in for x. So f of negative 5 means refer to this equation, but instead of x, put a negative 5. So take a moment, that equation looks like that equation. The difference is instead of x, which means unknown, I have an empty set of parentheses, which means unknown, until we're given this. The unknown now is supposed to be a negative 5. You plug it in. It's a negative 25 minus 3. That's a negative 28. The answer is D. Moving on, we can only add these together if we have a common denominator. This simplifies to be x plus 4 and x minus 4. And so if we look at the fact that this is an x minus 4, we're missing an x plus 4. But you can't just plop it there on the bottom. You got to multiply it by the top. So I have an x plus 4 times 5. Now I'm going to come over here and clean this up. Knowing that I have an x plus 4 and an x minus 4 as my denominator now, I now need to create this numerator by distributing the 5 and then combining like terms. Gives me a 5x plus 25 plus 3x. Now that 3x came from this and that plus. We have a common denominator, so that plus that is acceptable now. We put them together, and together the common terms are the 5x and the 3x, so we have an 8x plus 25. All the common denominators are the same, so it was a matter of making sure we saw the numerators. Oh, silly me, I caught it. And that's because I was looking around while talking. That's a 4, which means that's not a 25 at all. Paying attention? Okay, good. So it's actually 8x plus 20. 8x plus 20 is the numerator for A. The answer is A. 29. Find the vertex. This has to do with completing the square, which involves the b over 2 squared thing. Okay? B in this case is 6. And different teachers will teach different ways, but I like to get that 7 just out of the way. I'm going to change this to a y for the sake of ease. So if I move the 7 over to the other side by subtracting 7 from both sides, I temporarily have a y minus 7 equals x squared plus 6x. Leave space here to complete the square. Now b over 2, if b is my b is 6, 6 divided by 2 is 3, and 3 squared is equal to 9, so I'm adding 9 to both sides. Okay? I said temporarily I knew that was going to change. This becomes y plus 2 equals, and then this, by nature of adding the 9 using that process, this is a perfect square. Two numbers that multiply together to get 9 but add together to get 6 are 3 and 3. So x plus 3 squared is our are the factors written in this form. If I subtract the 2 from both sides, that is the portion of the equation that gives me the vertex. I need to change the sign inside here, keep the sign outside. It's a -3, -2, and the answer is A. So moving on, the product of the complex terms. Now this product, we need to make sure, you got to read this, because another thing could look exactly like this and have the word sum, or sun, which is warm. The sum means you're adding them together, but this says product. Sum would be 12 and 10i. I want the product. I want to multiply. This is a FOIL process. 5 plus 2i, 7 plus 8i. Now, some of you may FOIL, some of you may set up a box. Either way works. That's a 56. That outside there is a plus 40i. This guy right here is a plus 14i. And the last one is a plus 16i squared. Now we all know that an I squared is equal to a -1. So that right there simplifies to become a -16, which will then combine with the 56. 56 minus 16 is 40. And 40i plus 14i gives me a 56i. 54. I was back on the 16 train there for a second. 54i. You look up. Plus 16. My goodness. This is, it must be okay. 56 plus 16 is equal to 72. And if I, it's a minus. So that was actually full and legit. So minus 16 gives me 40. This is familiar territory, but not a familiar answer. So the product of the complex numbers, I'm going to recap this and the other. That's 56, that's 40, that's 14, and that's 16. That's a minus, and okay. So my guess is that I'm just going to say, 35. Who wanted that to be an 8? That's a 5. I thought it was an 8 for a second. You got it. It was an opportunity for you all get extra credit. Okay, so 35 minus 16 does in fact happen to be a 19. These things happen. And that's the answer. Okay, and lastly, which is the graph of this, we have our vertex at 3, -3. I hope you caught that, because I did. The only one this could be, because that's a positive one, it could be either of these two, because our vertex is over 3 and down 3. There's a vertex. Over 3 and down 3. There's a vertex. But one's facing up, the other one's facing down. Since it's positive, it's facing up. The answer is C. Are we all glad that's over?